will lead with, sorry, your last name? Fenimore. Lee Fenimore with Pure Water Joy. So Leah's going to go until 9:40 or just about, and then we're going to switch over to 80. So, two votes. All right. So, carry on. We got one chair up here, you guys, and one chair here.
All right, thanks for being here, everybody. I'm excited to talk to you about Pure Water Joy, which is a nonprofit organization that I helped co-found. It's a water aid organization.
Oh, Lee, I'm sorry. I forgot to ask you two
yeah.
questions. What is the design of this presentation?
Design of the presentation is to kind of inform you what Pure Water Joy is and what we're doing. It's it's informational as well as kind of a donor pitch, and kind of telling you a little. I go a little bit into the nitty-gritty of the financials and things, and kind of top of the iceberg things, though. So kind of more informational as well as a donor pitch.
Where would you like feedback? Because that's kind of what this room will do.
Yeah. I need feedback on a lot of things, that's for sure. I definitely need feedback on how to best reach donors, especially when we're such a small team right now. We're a team of 2 with a very small budget. So I'm looking for feedback on that, best fundraising strategies, as well as how to reach even those angel donors, those ones that are the big guys. Really just how to get the word out and make us known, really, in the communities that we're in, given our small stature. So some people haven't come to fundraising events that other restaurants have held because they're like, well, who are they? We don't know who we are. Well, I can't tell you who we are unless you come. So that kind of thing is kind of what I'm looking for. I'm also having kind of not an issue, but I get a lot of enthusiasm when I tell people about what I'm doing and what Pure Water Joy is, but then the dollars don't follow that. So I'm trying to kind of close that gap and have the enthusiasm bring the dollars, hopefully soon. So hopefully that helps.
Super.
Yeah.
All right. Carry
Is that all the questions? Okay. Yep. So Pure Water Joy is a water aid organization operating out of Western Tanzania. Tanzania is in East Africa. It's a country where 23 million people lack access to clean water. And that western area that we're working in, as far as I can tell, there's no foreign or domestic water aid organizations operating there currently. So we're the first of its kind. So we're really trying to serve these people who really do need it. Our major goal, again, is to bring clean water to these communities because the water that they have looks like this. This is a village I visited when I lived in Tanzania a few years ago, and they used this water for everything. So from drinking to bathing to cleaning their dishes and cooking and everything. So as you can imagine, drinking water like this is not safe. So this community in particular and a lot of other communities in Tanzania had huge issues with waterborne diseases like cholera, which is actually easily preventable if you have a clean water source. So there's actually a lot of people, mostly toddlers, that are dying of cholera because they don't have a clean water source. So we're trying to bring better health to these rural areas in Tanzania. In addition, those ponds that you saw in the last picture, those really are only full during the rainy season, but there's also a pretty long dry season as well. So when dry season occurs, it's the job of women and young girls to walk sometimes several miles, depending on the area that they're in, to the next year-round water source to harvest from there. A couple issues with this here is that since it's the job of young girls, those girls are not in school at certain points of the year, so they're missing out on educational opportunities by having to do this duty. And another more tragic thing happens as well when these women and young girls do leave the village to make that trek. Quite frequently they are sexually assaulted and raped during those journeys. So it's very dangerous for them. So Pure Water Joy is also trying to bring women's safety to these communities, as well as more education opportunities for girls by bringing clean water. So we do have a success story. Before Pure Water Joy was even a glimmer of an organization in me and the founder's eyes, I again visited Nandanga, which is where all those other pictures were taken. And this was the first community and village that I had been to while in Africa, where I was really confronted with the water crisis head on. So not only did it pull at my heartstrings, nobody should have to live like that. It's a horrible way to live, but it struck me as a problem with an easily solvable solution. So an easy solution, easily solvable problem. So at the time, I fundraised to purchase a borehole well for this village, and that was successful, and this is the result here. So that was 3.5 years ago, and I just got word today that this well, I mean, I've known that it's been in constant use since then, but it's 24-hour constant use. There's people coming from all over the area to use this clean water even through the night, which is awesome. So, and it's still producing to this day. So that was really cool to see. First number that I had was about 1,500 people were served by this well. Now that I know that it's in use all night, all through the night, it's probably much higher than that. All the disease and death rates from cholera and everything like that, that was drastically reduced as a result of that well. There are no reports of women or young girls being assaulted anymore, so that's really awesome. It's a lot safer community for them. And I think the greatest thing we achieved by getting this well is school enrollment rates in this village are now at 100% year-round for the whole school year. So any child who should be in school is in school now that they don't have to make that trek. So that's a really awesome thing to see happen from getting that well. I thought we were just bringing clean water, but really we were bringing more education to the village as well. So I'm the co-founder of this and the fundraiser here based in the U.S. The founder is a man named Mr. Kenneth Simbaya. He's a native of Nandanga. He's also a former co-worker of mine. We worked in a secondary school teaching together in a different area of Tanzania, and that's how we met. So over the past 3.5 years, as he's been monitoring this well and all those positive transformative changes that have come from it, that really inspired him to want to bring clean water as well as health and safety and more education to the greater Tanzanian community, especially in that western area where we're working, where nobody is currently. So he enrolled himself in a college program to learn how to become a well technician. So now he knows how to drill the wells, operate those drills, install them, get them working, everything like that, and then founded Pure Water Joy. So we are a registered NGO in Tanzania, the equivalent of a nonprofit there. And then on this side, here in the States, we have fiscal sponsorship. That's with Joy to the World Foundation in Colorado Springs. They are a 501c3 nonprofit, so by partnering with them, that allows us to act like, as well as receive donations like a U.S. charity would. So anyone who donates to us, that is tax deductible, even though we're a foreign organization. And so our plan here is I'm trying to fundraise the necessary money needed to purchase a borehole drill. So what we found out, the first way I did this to get that first well in the village was I went through a company and paid them $3,000 to install that well. That was low end. Usually companies out there charge double that, if not more. So rural communities in Tanzania where one person makes $500 a year cannot afford thousands of dollars for a well. That's why there's a huge lack of clean water there. However, if you have your own equipment, the actual cost of drilling a well hovers around $450, $500, which is an amount that the communities can collectively afford. So we plan to purchase our own equipment. Simbaya, since he has all that knowledge to be able to drill, we'll start drilling wells, starting in that western area, and then branching out once we're bigger and more established. And the communities will absorb the cost of that well, so they'll just pay the base cost, just pay for the pipes and the gas needed to drill those wells, unless there's donors here that want to adopt a village. I'd like to have an adopt a village program if you donate $500 or more. And then what he'll do, since he also knows how to drill the wells, he'll drill for private parties as well who don't intend to share the well. They will be charged the normal, just under the normal market rate, so that $4,000 and above range, and that way that will give us money to be able to maintain the drills and everything, and also for villagers who may not be able to get to the full $500 cost that it costs to drill a well. I also want to do a long-term impact study of it. So I'm a biology major. That's what I graduated in at CSU. Oh no. Don't hurt me. So yeah, I love numbers. So I want to see what are your rates of cholera before and after the wells are drilled. 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years down the line. I want to know what your school enrollments are. I want to know what your water quality data is. I want to know what your soil quality data is. So we'll be doing a long-term research study for that. And I think very little overhead is needed for this. We really just need that equipment to be able to do the work that we want to do. So currently the fundraising goals are to raise money for that drill. For our budget, 93% of that is just of what we're trying to raise is going towards equipment. The rest is going to go towards a little bit of that admin and build up work, as well as some environmental projects that we want to take on as well, some tree planting projects, because deforestation is a massively huge problem there too. Drill that we're looking at currently, there's a huge range of costs depending on what company you buy them from and what country. One we're looking at that's mid-range right now is costs $125,000. So if I can raise $200,000 or more, then that's my goal here. We're also trying to raise a $2,000 goal to get fully established under our fiscal sponsor. They need to see that to get us fully under their wing, get us on their website, get their tools, their fundraising tools and everything available to them or to us by using them. So my current strategy so far, I've raised about $3,000 since last July. Most of that has gone towards getting us established as an NGO. And then I've been doing special events. So I've done benefit concerts. Those have been really fun. I live down south in the spring, so that's where I've been doing those. We have a wine event coming up as well, wine and chocolate pairing. So I do crowdfunding. I do have a GoFundMe set up. I am currently working with a professional fundraiser as well, who's well versed in grant seeking, grant writing, grant applying. He's been doing it for 20 years, which is awesome. So I just met him, and we're in the initial phases of that process right now. And going to networking events like 1 Million Cups. I have found 1 Million Cups to actually be really valuable to what we're doing. I get a lot of great insight, ideas, things that I may not have thought about. I mean, there's a lot to think about when you're doing a nonprofit. So to have a perspective from others who are really invested in the business world has been really helpful. So I really love that I'm able to be here and get advice from you. So without further ado, I am ready for your questions if you have any. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you coming out to learn about Pure Water Joy.
All right.
Yeah, back there.
So Maria, I want to understand why the people that do this commercially get to charge $3,000 or $6,000. Like who in Africa who's able to pay for that? And
Private parties are.
And what are those costs going? Like, is it like their margins are huge?
Yeah, it's just the markups are huge. I don't know why. I didn't ask anyone why you charge so much, but I know that most of those well companies, they're not interested in the rural areas. They're interested in the hotels, the tourist hotels, because that's where the money is. Tourists pay a lot to go there and be there and see the animals and see the culture and everything. So they can charge these hotels and other private parties a lot of money because that money is there, because the tourists are paying me a lot of money. So that's where those wells are being drilled by these companies, not in the rural areas.
And so the $450 that you're planning to charge the communities, that covers just the basics.
Yeah, that covers the whole well. So that covers the gas needed to run the drill, that covers all the pipes, that covers the pump, that covers every single thing needed to make a functional well. Yes?
So I'm Susan Krause. I have a lot of project development experience, but I also was on the Engineers Without Borders team at CU that did a spring water program in Peru, and listened to some work, I think that may have come out of CSU, or it was a presentation that talked about a water project in Africa, which was a merry-go-round. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they install these merry-go-rounds, the kids play on them, and it pumps the water.
I've heard of that, yeah.
System. So I'm just curious how much knowledge you have about other NGOs that are trying to do other work and their successes and failures. One of the biggest issues with Engineers Without Borders is sustainability of the work that you do going on. So I'm really excited that you are training the people locally to do the support to make sure the pump will continue to work. I'm wondering about engineering costs, because you can't just say, here, I'm going to drill a hole right here and water's going to come up. So how do you determine the right locations for where you would actually drill these holes, and how do you feel in general? I mean, I'm really excited and proud of the work that you've done.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to look at some bigger picture questions.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you feel like you're going to be able to, with the small group that you're working with, manage the ongoing sustainability of this project if you, say, are able to drill 1,000 holes for different villages, which would be
Great.
great. And
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about, I mean, I don't really think of you like being competitive in
Yeah,
this situation, but
yeah.
there are, once again, there are other projects and people that are trying to do this. CSU also has a water filtration system that you, or maybe it was mines that you pour through various rocks, and if you pour water through rocks, it takes out the bacteria.
Yep.
So I'm just curious how much research you've done on other methods that are already there that maybe you could team with, or if this is the best method that you can.
This was the best method that I could see to bring water in mass. So yeah, there are a lot of really innovative NGOs doing innovative technologies, I guess. Like I've seen one that's a pyramid, or like a teepee, and it pulls water out of the air like condensation, and then puts it in like a little pool below, and you can harvest that. But that's good for a family. So that's great if you're doing a project for just one village. But we're trying to get, at least the whole western area, or a big chunk of the western area. I've heard about the life straws as well. I haven't looked into them yet. I just learned of life straws about like a couple weeks ago. So there's someone I'd like to partner with too, at least to get those straws there before, while we're waiting to get to drill in an area. I haven't looked into that yet. There are other NGOs. I mean, there's so many. I've emailed a lot, and I either get no answers or, hey, we can't help you.
So the second part of that question is, what about the engineering side of this, for knowing where to drill?
Oh,
And
yes.
also the sustainability of the whole project
right.
over the long haul.
Part of what I budgeted, there is a piece of equipment I think it's sonar, and it shows you where there's where most of the water is in each area. So you don't want to just start drilling somewhere in case the water table at that specific spot is pretty low, but you can find that with pieces of equipment, which I hope to buy as well. And then, once we get the thousands of wells, I would like to do, he has a team with him. He plans to go multiple times to these places just to check on things, but I can understand once it gets to thousands of wells, that might be difficult. So I don't have that plan in place yet, but I do know that we can send volunteers out there too. So once we're more established, then we can send a team of volunteers to go make sure everything's okay, and he can build up his team as well. He already has a small team established. He can establish more as he goes on, and hopefully we can get multiple vehicles and they can go check. So I do want to make sure all the wells are okay.
Yeah, some of the sustainability things with Engineers Without Borders have been really
Yeah.
difficult. Like they've gone in, they've done a project, and they go back 3 years later, and
It's defunct.
it's not working anymore, and
Yeah.
it's not sustained, and
Yeah.
so that's
No,
why it's asking.
We'll train everybody like right when it's drilled how to maintain the well, and then follow up after that as best we can. Yes.
When you're drilling the holes, where is the water supply that you're coming from, that you're tapping into?
It's the aquifer, the groundwater.
Do you have
So
any,
beneath the bedrock.
are there any concerns about pumping it out faster than it's being replenished?
About what being
About
replenished?
pumping out the water faster than it's being replenished? I mean, there are places even in this country where I understand the ground is actually sinking because the agribusiness, and I think personal use is taking the water out faster than it comes in.
Yeah. I haven't seen a problem with that currently, and especially, that this well has been in operation for 3.5 years and it hasn't run dry yet. I would see that being a problem if there was some sort of climate change issue where it stopped raining, but they're actually getting more rain than normal right now. So I haven't come across that. I will say I haven't researched what to do if that happens yet. That's kind of cross a bridge when it comes to it issue. Yeah. Oh, so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You go.
I was more wondering about what happens if you put in, you start running into that when you put in, let's say, 1,000 boreholes.
This is in multiple areas though.
Right.
This is not like 1,000 in one area.
I
This is hundreds of miles apart type thing. There's a lot of rural areas and they're very spread out throughout that western area. So I know that there's so many other people doing water aid and wells, elsewhere in the country. And I haven't seen that, and I didn't find in my research that to be a problem. So I hope not.
And
Yeah.
ground rules, guys, let us know who you are.
Rick Lukash, Angel Investor.
And I'm Susan Strong, Director of Sage Boulder Pro Bono Mentoring for really early stage companies. And I want to follow up on what Susan said.
Sure.
I actually, interesting, had lunch yesterday with a woman who's part of Maji Sofi Group.
Oh, I've heard of them.
MAJISOFI, it means clear clean water in Swahili. And they seem to be a very big NGO, nonprofit operating in Tanzania, focusing on water, women's health. And so two things. One, it might be interesting to connect with them.
Yep.
But also, they have a really extensive website and a lot of fundraising. They do a golf tournament. They do all kinds of things. So it might be a place to get some of the ideas you
Yeah,
were asking for in the beginning. And I'm going to apologize because I have to leave. But
Oh, that's
I wanted
okay.
to give you
Yeah,
that
no, I'll look into
connection.
them. I've heard of them, yeah, and I can't
I'll leave my
recall if
card
I've
here.
emailed them.
I'll leave my card on the table. in
Oh,
case you
perfect,
want
yeah,
it.
I'll take that, thank you.
Good job.
That's cool, you went to lunch with her.
Well, I play golf with her.
Oh, well, there you go,
So I'm
perfect.
familiar with the golf tournament. But they're very aggressive about fundraising in the local
Yeah,
area. They
I
run
know
a
that.
bunch of different events.
Because I guess I haven't been as impressive as I
But I
need to be.
think this is really, I agree with Susan, this is really inspiring.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Susan.
Yes.
I'm Susie, nurse practitioner. Couple comments about your presentation and a couple comments about
Okay.
your idea. Your PowerPoint was wonderful. It helped complement what you were doing until 2 slides before this one. The plan, if you could just take words away.
Too much words.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the one after it was a little bit better, but also compared with the earlier part of the presentation.
Oh, it's really fuzzy.
Yeah, so just polish
Okay.
those up a little bit and
Okay.
allow your words to tell the story, because you do a
Yeah.
wonderful job of storytelling, which is powerful. And you do a great job of connecting with the community down there. And if you can take that one step further and connect with the audience, like this is what you can do, this is where your money's going, I think that that might add a whole nother layer of connection.
Okay.
And going off of that to the idea, so I am planning a trip to Kilimanjaro in 2019.
Nice!
I'm in the very early stages of it, and I have ideological issues with going into somebody else's environment and extracting stuff for myself without giving back. So what I try to do on those types of trips is some sort of service component along with it, and it makes me feel better and perhaps helps the community that I'm, intruding on. So, and it's not a cheap endeavor to do it.
No, it's not.
So I'm looking for organizations that do guided trips up there where either I can, like some of their money goes towards a local organization, or we spend a day helping volunteer doing something, or things like that. And I know that there's organizations that do that sort of thing, so that might be a potential partnership to investigate.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
people that climb Kili have money to share.
At last 1 Million Cup, someone was like, partner with safari companies. I was like, brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start putting out feelers for that too. That's a wonderful idea. Yeah. Yes.
It seems like I'm Rick Brennan, I'm a local entrepreneur. It seems like the underpinning problem is financial, right? If you had all the financial resources. If you look at the rest of the world, water is a critical underpinning to commerce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Agriculture, all kinds of other things. Do your wells, could your wells enable them to generate their own, could they farm, right?
Yes.
I don't know, So, if you combined it with the well goes in, the financing is debt financing because they're gonna produce income with the well.
Yep.
Maybe it doesn't happen or it lines up with the harvest or something like
Yeah.
that. Because, as a 501c3 and getting money from donors, a tough road to scale.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to scale that way. But if you're creating commerce opportunities with your wells, then it naturally scales, and then it'll transform over time into what the rest of the world does, which is that's basic infrastructure. None of us even think about drilling wells to get water because we need it to live and do commerce and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So it's like power, water, roads, so the country needs to at some point recognize that money goes into that, comes back out as
Yes.
commerce, right?
Thoughts? Yeah, that is a piece that I didn't really talk about. He does have an agricultural component to it, so there will be hopefully more products in that regard, farm-wise, from the wells, because some of them will be for drinking, some of them will be for irrigation. The other thing that I had an idea of is, since these women are spending hours a day walking to get water, what are they gonna do with those hours when they have
Sure.
the wells in? So I wanted to do entrepreneurship training with them, once those are established. I have a couple NGOs that I worked with when I lived in Africa before, because this was an independent project. This was not through an NGO or anything, this was just me. But there's a project before where they taught them how to produce honey. and people would love to buy honey from Africa here. So you can sell that in African towns, you can sell that abroad, worldwide. So if I can partner with them to train these women how to become beekeepers and harvest honey or something, and then have a product that I can sell to support it.
So I'm also
That's an
an
idea.
investor, and I know 501c3s are not necessarily not profit generating, right? The best ones do. I'd be much more willing to write a check if I knew it was going to something that was going to be scalable and sustainable. If it's just going and it's gone, I'm
Yeah.
probably not gonna write the check. So if you tell that story, I think you'll reach a whole different class of donors,
Okay.
and those donors tend to have a lot more money.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yes.
So I'm Ian. I'm a local attorney. I do VC finance and M&A. Would it be helpful for you to answer your feedback ask, to look at this and take a step back and run through what are the points that I think at least don't resonate with me or might not resonate with a donor? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think Susan's question and Rick's are, I think the biggest thing, the reason that if I were a donor I would be hesitant to write a check is I don't know what I'm writing a check for.
Okay. So
You
it
have a
needs to
great
be
story.
somebody. Okay.
You have a wonderful story, you have a wonderful problem.
Okay.
I don't understand, and you mentioned at one point that you're a data person and it makes me happy. There's a lack of data here. What are other people doing? So for an investor, what would make me write a check, or as a donor? Because donors and investors are the same people, they just have different expectations of outcome, right? The exact same mentality. I want to see that you know every single person doing anything like this, period. Exactly how they do it, what the economies of scale are, how much it costs, why it works and why it doesn't work, why they are doing it where they're doing it and not where you want to do it. So that my fundamental question is, why in the world would I write you a check instead of this other person? And if the answer is just because this is my project, then I'm I'm out. But if it's, actually, hey, there's a really good reason for that. Everyone's doing the work in this region of Tanzania because of X, Y, and Z. Nobody's looked at this region in Tanzania. For these reasons, the technology that these people are using there, the merry-go-round thing, just doesn't work there. It's too hilly, you can't spin it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Here's why we're doing it this way. But I see these numbers, and $200,000 to $300,000 for equipment. You said that the equipment was $125,000. I'm curious where the extra, 75 to 175 goes. We then get to questions about how do you find the water? Well, I can buy this equipment, to find I need to really have a lot of confidence that the whole plan is thought through. You understand security costs. What happens when you show up in Tanzania with a $300,000 piece of equipment and no one there to keep somebody else from walking away with it? What are the pieces there that are moving? And what are the other costs that other entities like yours might have an overhead? And then, to Rick's point, what comes out of it? What's the, okay, great, you show up, you put 1,000 holes in the ground and you leave. What next? Yeah, so that's my feedback is use your data from that one well. Instead of giving them a number now enrollment's at 100%, show me what it was. What's the increase in enrollment because of this well? What's the decrease in cholera? You've got a well, you've got an experiment. Go gather the data before you run experiment 2 through 1,000. Go close down
agree.
number 1.
Yeah, I completely agree. I didn't know this was going to become an organization when I drilled that well, so that's why I wasn't getting the data. As well as I was heavily suffering from malaria at the time I was drilling as well. So it was just get the drill, just get the well, and I'm out. I need to leave. So I understand that would be extremely needed for what I'm doing, but. Not even. So I think be careful about falling in the trap of I have this whole list of things I want to do when I have money, which is kind of like a business saying I have all these products I could offer when I have customers. The one comes before the other. So I would recommend find someone there, whether it's this guy who's on your team, to just go around and do some anecdotal surveys. We're doing that right now. He's doing that as we speak
Gather that
right now.
data, stitch it together,
Mhm.
and then you, while you're in the US, do that research around
Yep.
every other person that's doing anything like this. Find them, find out why you think what you're doing is going to be different from what they're doing, and stitch that into a clear, here's the whole thing. Because if you flip this and just look at it like a business, which again, like it is.
Yes, it is.
It's just a business where your customers are the ones watching you do the work instead of the ones, consuming your work.
Mhm.
Like, look at it the same way. Like, why are these other entities not scratching this itch, not solving this problem, and stitch that together into this? But you've got the narrative, you've got the story.
Okay.
You just need more
Can I
what?
ask?
I'd
Can I ask-
try to learn from their failures too, because a lot of these
Yeah.
programs have failed, and if you can really study those and go, hey, we're gonna learn from these
Yeah.
mistakes, and the
Mhm.
way to learn from these mistakes is one of my concerns is, you really mentioned this, I don't really think you have a strong enough team.
Yeah.
You have a guy that you said just took a class to learn how to drill, to maintain wells,
He
and
didn't
yourself.
take a class. It was a college program.
Well, he took a program, but he's not an engineer, right? So you don't have an engineer on your team. And you don't have to have a full-time person, but being associated with Engineers Without Borders that have some, like Engineers Without Borders requires that you have a PE on your team, a professional engineer that's not only gone to engineering school, but had to go get his PE license. He doesn't work full-time, he just checks in with you and says, your plan isn't looking good. And then they have a whole team that reviews your plan to say, we think this is sustainable, or this disrupts the community. An interesting story from my team was that they put in a toilet, right? They didn't have toilets.
Yeah.
So they put in this toilet, and they came back next year to do the water, and it failed. Because nobody would use the toilet if everybody couldn't use the toilet.
Mhm.
And not everybody lived close enough to the toilet, so they decided no one could use the toilet. I mean, these are things you can't figure out,
Yeah.
sociological problems that you
Yeah.
can't necessarily know going in.
Wow.
So, anyway.
Good to know. Yes.
So, Dave Giltner, I teach scientists how business works, so CSU grad as well. So I guess maybe to summarize all this, what I'm hearing, I think, is your pitch right now comes off more like a charity, at least to me, rather than a scalable business concept that wants to do something good. And I think what you're hearing is people that have money or do it because they're good at investing, and they're going to see your pitch more as a charity than as something that is actually sustainable and could really exist and make a big difference and be different than the charities that, tug on people's heartstrings and get money and do something, but it doesn't really sustain. I think you have an opportunity to do something to build.
Yeah, sustainability is extremely important to me, so.
So I think it shows up both in the design,
Yeah,
Susan was talking about the
that
people and teams, but also then the pitch. I think you want some of the heartstring part,
Yeah.
but I think you have an opportunity to show that it's actually a sustainable business concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
So along those lines, and following on the team side, donations come in multiple flavors. One of them is time. And one of the things that I definitely, if I was you, ask a crowd like this is, hey, if you have the skills to help me join my team, give me that help, right?
Yep.
Because there are a bunch of entrepreneurs, you can hear these people, right?
Yeah.
So you're very similar to a lot of very early stage companies that I run into. They understand the problem, they don't yet have the real product, they haven't really solved the real problem. And they need to build the team with the skills necessary.
Yeah.
They seeing the problem is critical. Figuring out how to solve it is a lot harder.
Yes. Yeah, I would love time and people's time to help me. I mean, you hit on something, and I had a feeling this would come out during my talk. I mean, this is great feedback. You're like, why haven't you done this research? Why haven't you done this? I've been working 2 jobs on top of this with an elderly lab. So I've been doing the best I can. So that's kind of why it's a little bit paltry. So yeah, having people who have extra time to help, round up some of those pieces, that would be awesome. I'm just one person. So, and there's so much research to do. I know that I haven't done enough research, but there's also lots of action items that I need to do. So I agree, donations of time, and that's on my website of like, hey, I need volunteers who know how to do this, and this. Would you be willing to help? I haven't gotten anything from it so far, but that is a wonderful comment as well, so thank you.
All right, thank you. BizEatz, Adrian Lai. So, what's the design of your presentation?
Design presentation is informational on the idea and the beginnings of an investor pitch deck. You can see that there's some stuff that is lacking that still needs to be on the go-to-market strategy and the financials. And the ask on feedback is on the go-to-market strategy, and then also if you know anyone that might be really interested and passionate about this idea, they can contribute either human capital or financial capital.
Carry on.
All right. So I'd like to start off by talking to you all about our first customer, Roby Clark. He's 33 years old. He's a first-year consultant. And before we started traveling, Roby used to maintain a pretty healthy lifestyle. He exercised regularly, would eat at Whole Foods, and do meal prep. But since he started traveling, he's been having trouble maintaining that lifestyle. He travels Monday through Thursday, every week of the month. Let's go through a typical Tuesday for Roby. It's Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. He's been at the client side all day. He's still jet lagged from traveling on Monday, and he's just getting back to his hotel. And Roby has some decisions to make. He has 4 more hours of work to do. He needs to eat, he wants to work out, and at some point he needs to sleep. And today, despite his best intentions to maintain a healthy lifestyle, he decides not to work out. Next decision. He starts looking through his food delivery apps. What is he going to eat? He sees this healthy-ish, but not that appetizing-looking salad. Keeps browsing, and then he sees this calorie and carb-filled and very comforting pizza. And again, today Roby is too hungry and tired to make the better decision, and decides to eat the pizza. 2 hours later, 3/4 of pizza, and a stomach full of regret, Roby's in a food coma. He is trying to do his work. We've all been there. He's tired. He's not feeling great. And while this is just one Tuesday for Roby, this has become pretty routine for him since he's been on the road. And if he continues down this path, studies have shown that business travelers are subject to increased risk of stroke, heart attack, and obesity. And the problem is that eating healthy while traveling is hard. Hi, my name's Adrian. I'm with BizEatz, and we're helping business travelers eat healthy. Roby's not alone. On a daily basis, there are 1.3 million business travelers in the US alone. And typically before business travelers like Roby travel, they're able to plan ahead and book their flights and book their hotels. And now with BizEatz, they can plan ahead and book their healthy meals. We are working with an industry of healthy, organic, ready-to-eat meal providers, as you can see here on the right, and connecting them to the business traveler. And here's how it works. A few days before Roby's going to travel, he opens his app, let us know when and where he's traveling. He can see the options that are available, orders his meals. Before he checks in, we'll make sure that the delivery is there at the hotel. And then, as you can see last year on the right, he has healthy meals throughout the week to eat at his convenience. In 2015, business travelers spent $60 billion alone on meals. With the assumptions that you can see here, we think that the service addressable market is $500 million. If we can capture 5% of that market, our service panel market is $25 million. Taking a look at the competition, you can see at the bottom right, we've heard some customers tell us that they'll actually go to, you can't see at the bottom right because I'm standing there, but they will actually go to Whole Foods with everything else they have to do during their business travel and go and find meals and bring them back to the hotel. So they can find healthy options there, but it's not relatively convenient. And then you can see on the other extreme, just your general eating out options, which may be convenient if they're nearby the hotel or the client site, can be convenient, but they're not very healthy. At the top right, you see BizEatz, which is the healthiest, most convenient option. Our revenue model is going to be marking up the vendor's food 30%, as well as charging a $6.95 per order fee. And we think this is very reasonable for a few reasons. One, our customer is the business traveler, so they're expensing all of their meals, so they're relatively price insensitive. Additionally, if you look at what it costs to get room service or just eating out in general, it's comparable, if not less expensive. And then what we've heard from customers is that what they're really paying us for is not just the health, but it's really the convenience, making it easy and convenient to eat healthy. Taking a look at our team, between the two of us, we have lots of experience in operations and management. I have previous startup experience. I'm also at the Galvanize Weather Element class in Denver. And then the other co-founder has lots of experience in food marketing. So we've actually tested some of these operations, not just an idea. You can see some of the numbers up there. We've had several customers, repeat customers, and we've been able to execute this in several different cities with many different vendors. So now, how do we actually go to market and how are we going to scale that? We're still doing some targeted B2C efforts with the same customers we've been going after, but we're also looking at how to do some B2B customer validation. So how do we scale? How do we partner with companies so we're able to scale this reasonably? And then establishing those B2B partnerships, and then as we're doing that, expanding the commercial kitchens that we onboard to the platform. And then we think eventually this could be the platform that aggregates all of these commercial type kitchens so that it's an easy experience for anyone to order from these companies. Once again, my name's Adrian. I'm with BizEatz. Thank you for listening. Questions? Yeah.
Dirk Norton, I'm a retired engineer. I lived that life for about 5 years, I guess. And I think you're spot on. The business model is great because the company does pay for the trips. But one thing to keep in mind, at least the company I work for,
Sure.
they limit the amount for dinner to a certain amount and the amount for lunch to a certain amount. Find out what those amounts are and put it just right under them.
Sure.
For your total, and then, and you also might integrate with they usually have a charging app, that you can take a picture of your receipt or.
Expensify.
Yeah.
Or, yep, that's a.
Integrate with those, and great idea.
Yeah, and that would, if there's a way to make any pain point easier. So for what we've heard from a lot of the customers is, every 2 weeks I have to spend half an hour doing expense management. And it's just like another thing to do. If we can integrate with Concur, there's some sort of integration where it's even more seamless. If there's a corporate account that plugs into the platform, and that's just one more thing where we add.
And yours is an app, right? A mobile app, or is it? Are you just still?
We're off of like a Squarespace website right now, but
okay.
in the future. Thanks. Yes.
So I think you said it kind of towards the end, and I might consider leading with it more, which is this should or could really be B2B. B2C is fine. Like, I think there's a lot of potential there too. You can sort of sit on both sides of that. But as you think about like early efforts to gain adoption, where you're going to get more traction faster, I would sort of look at that. But also, just to confirm like how this works, my imagination is running wild. So I'm gonna make up how I use this, and I love your story, by the way. Like the narrative, like that's great. Maybe add a little bit of details that answer this question, so I don't have to make it up. I imagine I like upload my itinerary, or manually like put in which hotels I'm gonna be at. If it's the second one, then that sucks. Fix that. Make it so I can just forward my itineraries, and you guys figure it out. And I tell you like what I like to eat, and what sort of stuff I want, and what time I expect to sort of be done for the day, and food shows up. Is that more or less it?
So in the future, I think there's different ways.
For ideal product, like
Sure.
MVP obviously is a different thing, but like for production, what do you expect?
Yeah, so it's for your first time, you would input food preferences, and depending on what the travel is, when and where you're going. With respect to the itinerary, I don't know if that's eventually where we want to go. I think there might be some. It sounds like there could be convenience, but I don't know how much of it people would want to be. Like, I don't know what the customer actually wants in that sense, but functionally, yes, we know. You let us know when and where you're going in the app, and then you see options pop up like any other food delivery app, and then that would be only options where we could deliver to that hotel by the time you check in within that time frame, are ones that would show.
Okay.
And then by the time you check
Is that
in.
for the whole week? That's the part I didn't do. Like, are you delivering 3 meals if you're there for 3 days?
So we
who
typically
stores
deliver
it, or-
on Mondays, and the companies that we work with are these commercial kitchens that have meals that are good for 4 to 5 days. So like Freshly, Kettlebell Kitchen.
So you gotta have a mini fridge.
Yeah, so that's correct. So you have to have a microwave and mini fridge.
Okay.
And we won't do the delivery unless we can ensure you have access to those.
Okay, that was missing from the pitch.
Yeah.
That's really important information.
Yep.
Because that changes, I think, how you scale. And if you're making 3 deliveries or 4 deliveries to me on a per day basis, that's a radically different thing from delivering me once on Monday. But But like this is really cool. I think you need to do a little bit more like discovery around exactly what those price points are and exactly what people will do. But I would buy this. I would buy this in an instant. But I would buy it to outsource all of it. Like I don't want to think. I don't want to do. I want food to show up at my hotel, and I want you guys to figure out what and when.
Yeah.
So like, but again, I'm a more annoying customer than many others. But this is cool. This is very
that's
cool.
right. And we have some that are like that. We've had people be like, I don't even want to
I
choose.
own it.
Just six meals. Get them to me. Like these are breakfasts and lunches that I want. Get them to me. And other people do want to see the menu every weekend.
Yeah. And that's maybe where you talk to the B2B. So so what I would do is reach out to every EA you can find at every venture-backed startup in Boulder, Denver. And let's call it 500 people you're going to talk to. And those are 500 early adopters because my wife's DA for the Sphero exec team, and I can tell you, she would use this in an instant. She would upload exactly where Paul's going to be and exactly where, Jen, like all of them and what they like and when they're going to be there, and food would show up and they would say, Jazz, we love you. And they would pay money for that. Lots of money. So.
Yeah, so interesting. Two thoughts then, I guess, have on the B2B side. The fact that you need the fridge sounds like you should be partnering with residence inns and places that have the kitchen, because that's the place where you're set up to do that and even then eat your food, not a hotel where it's going to be impractical. Oh crap, I don't have a refrigerator. What am I going to do now? My stuff's going to go bad. But the other thing is it makes me think, you mentioned business travelers. Depends on the company you're at. Sometimes if you do something odd and your manager looks at it and says, gee, 30% markup and a $7 fee, what the hell are you doing? As opposed to if you partner with some of these companies that are already doing other kinds of employee health things, having their employees wear Fitbits and get a break on their insurance. If you do that, all of a sudden it becomes part of, hey, we're doing this to help you guys be healthy, and the employees feel good doing it because it's actually, and if you integrate it with the expense, because that probably happens too, now you got something that
don't itemize on that.
Gee, is my manager going to think I'm some weird granola charging extra money versus, hey, this is what we all do and it's easy. Huge difference.
Yeah, so I agree with you on all those points. I think there's several different partnerships, whether it's with a Concur, where it's just an API plugin, or it's with the hotels and you offer it to certain chains, especially ones that have microwaves. And then also trying to get into the H&R health and wellness at these companies. Those are all things that we've sort of had on the table, but just haven't had the human resources or the connections to be able to get in the door and have these conversations because we're just, an early stage startup. So it's been hard. We've done some emailing and but haven't heard a lot back. Yep.
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off of that idea, and also given the fact that you're small and have limited amount of human resources, focusing on corporate wellness would be huge. If you get one corporation who has like a consulting company, they have giant budgets for corporate wellness, and it's spent like worse. By the way, I'm Susie, nurse practitioner. And one of the things that they fail to recognize is that exercise and movement is the inferior aspect to look at in terms of overall health and wellness. It's what we're putting in our bodies that is truly doing the damage. You can't outrun your fork. Like there's it's not going to solve the problem. So,
That's great.
yeah, so if we could solve then that does way more, and it's not just heart attacks and strokes that are being caught, like autoimmune disorders, Alzheimer's, like every single disorder that is on the planet stems from nutrition. And if a corporation could buy into that fact and then invest in something like this, and if you have like one, like Uber Eats or one primary partner that could help solve for that margin, that 30%, and because you're giving them this quantity of business, then it could really actually transform a lot of different issues. Not only that, and then so the value proposition, if you could reduce those margins by getting a strong partnership with somebody with the boots on the ground to deliver the service, then perhaps the corporation can solve a little bit of, reduce their expenses on meals by a little bit. If you can prove that marginally, your costs are a little bit less than what people are spending. Second if you can do more research into the increase in productivity for having a healthy worker, like that would also be huge. Like the amount of energy and positive productivity that the person is getting because they're well would be great, and there is research on that.
Yeah.
And linking that to the nutrition, I think could be a great value proposition for a large corporate organization who has the innovative type of thinking. And you only need one in order to make your business viable, in my opinion.
Yep, so I agree with the health and wellness. With respect to the margins, even like the margins I think are not, it's more important to scale than the margins, so I agree with your point to be able to tell that value proposition with the financial cost, because I think with the companies you can say, yeah, this will make people feel better, this and that, but if we can say for a big corporation this saves you $10 million a year, that's also something that like money drives decisions. And then on the productivity research, yeah, I think that's something that we could add into the story or just have as an appendix or something. But even aside from that, we've heard customers say, like, yeah, this saved me 8 minutes in the morning, which is like, I set my alarm 8 minutes later, or I stayed at the client site till 8:30 last night, and because I knew I had food waiting when I got back, I scarfed in like 5 minutes and like kept working. Just like anecdotal stories like that prove that there's less, like it's one less decision that you have to make if you can make those decisions on a Thursday or Friday when you're not stressed out, as opposed to like during the week when they're traveling and having to make all these decisions when you're not necessarily your ideal self.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like a consulting company like McKinsey or something. You're speaking their language just by using those words.
Yeah, those are typically all the people that we've had. Most of them are Bain, BCG, McKinsey, Accenture, PwC, just because those were a lot of the connections we had from the co-founders going to business school. And yeah, it's trying to figure out how to get there and to get our foot in the door with these big companies when we're a startup. But I think all those things that you said are things that we're thinking about. I like the productivity research to just add more to the value prop. Yep.
What's up, Adrian?
How's it
Good to
going?
see you, man. Nice job
Likewise.
there. Robert, Creative Lab, Director of Tech. Can you go back? I just want to give some feedback on one more slide, I think.
My worst slide here.
The one where you had 20 customers right here. I think it would have been good to put some dollar signs to this slide. If you're looking for human capital and financial capital, I think people would like to see like what you've done overall,
Sure.
what your recurring, MRR is. I think that would have helped you a little bit because you have customers and you have money, and that's awesome. So I think you should display that.
Unless it's shitty.
Just saying.
Shitty money? Just saying.
Massage it.
So
Ian wipes with money. Just so you know.
What can I say?
Bolivian money though.
Boulevards.
It's cheaper than paper.
I do have that. But the problem is the graph looks like, you see where we're able to get customers within our first month of having the idea, and then it goes up through December, and then you see like when I started Galvanize and had less focus on, and then it sort of goes down. So, but I think there's a way to have a number there that at least gives some sort of ballpark of what we've been able to achieve, other than just the number of customers. Yep.
Maria, co-founder of a science company. I will also think about how to make your operations cheaper and easier. And I think that going to a business where you can more predictable, know where people are going, so you don't have to cover the entire US, but like these companies' employees are moving from New York to the Bay Area to Denver. Then I think that will make it more streamlined for you and make it cheaper.
Yes.
So I also live this life quite a bit, but I also live the life now where when I travel, I have a problem every time I get to the airport. I get to the airport, I'm like, oh, am I going to order the food on the airplane? Do I have to stop somewhere to buy food? So I was thinking about a marketing tactic, which is obviously you're going to compete against the other vendors, but it's a way to get your label out there, is to have a kiosk-type place where there's food there where people can pick up prepackaged. They don't have to think too much to order. They pick up a package of food. You give them a thing that says, hey, and by the way, you're going on a trip. Here's a QR code or whatever to download our app, and you can order the food for the rest of your trip while you're traveling. And it's a way to build business, but it also solves that eating on the airplane problem, which is even just as bad as eating in the hotels. Like, you're trapped in this plane for 4 hours, you're starving, you didn't stop to get something, you don't want to eat the airplane food, you eat pretzels and peanuts and so you could solve that problem too, and that really addresses all these airlines that have stopped giving you anything worthwhile to put in your mouth while you're flying, unless you're first class like Ian.
Private jet.
I like this idea better than your existing business, but only for one particular reason. I think is a nice early part is you know exactly where they're going to be and when they're going to be there because you have their itinerary. You don't have to worry about where they laid on site. If as you think of where do you roll out first, right? The ultimate business is the same, but do you start with delivery to hotel or you start with delivery in the airport? Exact same back end of the business, everything else, but to her point, you have a kiosk set up in just after security or whatever, or in the main concourse of whatever terminal.
Has to be after security because everyone's around the time, right?
But and it's oh great, it's between 11 and 1. I'm on track for my flight. I know I have a salad with chicken waiting for me. Where's the kiosk? There it is. I'm done. Now I hop on the airplane.
Well, and you can start your business that way. Just start by doing one kiosk in one airport to start getting your business scaled. Because scale is going to be your most difficult challenge, I think. And if you start in an airport, you can prove your model really quickly. And you can say, and from this kiosk, we got 3,000 customers to adopt within 1 month to download our app. And of those 3,000 that downloaded our app, 1,500 actually ordered food in the second month, and you could really prove numbers very quickly by having this method for grabbing customers.
And business travelers tend to hit the same airports all the time.
And the same airline, right? So be in the concourse with the major
Denver,
airline.
Atlanta,
in the United,
Dulles.
In the United, great, because it's the hub here. 90% of people are going through the United. The business travelers.
Rick?
Yes. I think it's a good idea. Don't underestimate the difficulty of actually getting a kiosk space.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
I'm not going to say, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought. I think there's a lot to get to that kiosk in the airport, but
or deliver outside, deliver in the taxi cab.
You can't.
You can take food. You can take water. You can take food in.
Can you take it to security?
Yeah. A lot of people do because they have allergies and things.
Yeah. But they are possibly changing the laws, or they were doing something at DIA that was trying to test that.
Don't rely on regulatory change. You'll be screwed.
So I'm Ben, investor, and so speaking about this slide, seeing some people's faces would be good maybe for the 37, or you could even have kind of like a conglomerate of 37, then 15, and then maybe also kind of like the average, I think you're over the number of meals, so you can kind of break down the numbers. So it helps with that. And I think it was $7.95 or something. So is that, if I order for 2 weeks, is it just one $7.95? Is that trying to break down, or is that per actually each food item?
Not per each item, per order.
Okay, so clarifying that.
But that would be two.
And right now, I don't know if anyone else has noticed the music jumping up. You have the music icon. So
iTunes.
So I don't know if anyone could, in the crowd could raise their hand I found that kind of distracting. So make sure that you don't have anything bouncing up and down on your screen that's taking away from your presentation. And then speaking of pictures, if you go back to where it was you and your co-founder, so I'm pretty sure you can get a better picture of yourself. You kind of are.
That's as good as I get.
You're attractive. You might as well put that up there and make sure that you kind of sell that.
Yeah, you're right. How much better looking?
I wasn't even sure it was you, actually.
Right.
Yes, that's the same guy.
Yeah, doesn't have glasses. So, and then segueing. So I guess if you're going to go move this business model, you obviously have to figure out kind of hey, is it only going to be refrigerated stuff? Are there going to be microwaves there if you're going to heat stuff? And then, is a big inconvenience if people take things to get microwaved on planes and ask this, attendants to do that. That's a whole other thing, as well as reserving food for people, where some food's going to go to people immediately, or that have been pre-requested. But moving to your issue, and maybe speaking to Ian, is maybe also taking the whole ordering process and actually having the food delivered to a person is an inconvenience. I've gone to a hotel and there was a bunch of issues, or my flight was delayed. Maybe my food was already supposed to be there. So maybe the bigger business model is communicating with the hotels to actually deliver the food into the fridge. So they get there, it's kind of like that mint that's on your pillow. Yeah. So in essence, you're taking that whole thing out of the equation, because travel's stressful enough. You might as well make it as streamlined as possible. And the other catch to add on to that, I went to a hotel in New York City this year, had issues with the bathroom. That whole hotel was full, so we had to change hotels. So like a GPS kind of ping to basically say, hey, where is this person? Like, where are they maybe staying? Like, maybe a UI UX thing that pops up on their screen that says, hey, are you ready? Did you actually catch your flight today? I mean, maybe not that specific, but like, are you at this hotel? Or do you want your food delivered? Kind of just a quick verification. And that also moves into the area of, hey, maybe there's certain people that want to have meals surprised, and some people who want to choose every single meal and be able to have a UI UX in the initial ordering process, so that, hey, like, I'll give you the list of all the different foods I like, here's the food allergies I have, and then here's an example of what the menu would be. And so that person can kind of say, hey, that looks great, and then they can be surprised by what their meals are and when they, you know, open up their fridge. So.
Yep. So just to answer that for the first one, we try and make it as seamless as possible. So typically when they check in, they have someone bring the food up to the meals in the refrigerator, but occasionally we're able to get where it is really end to end. They put the order in and they walk into their hotel.
It's already there.
And it's already there. Microwaves.
Yeah.
We also request plates and utensils from the hotel, so they have a set of plates, utensils, meals are already in there. So, but when we're able to do that, I think that really is like the 6, 10 or whatever 10-star experience.
Yeah.
And then I think to answer Ian and yours, sort of like how does this actually work? I think I can add like a product roadmap to the slides that has a bunch of these ideas that we think are hypotheses, but aren't necessarily, you know, there's a plan to deviate from.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Leah. So stick around. Any additional feedback you can get for Leah or Adrian would be terrific. And thank you all, as usual, for your excellent feedback.